Good evening, everybody, and thank you for giving up your valuable family time on a Thursday evening. What I might do is, can I just get everyone to let me know by someone shooting something in the chat box that you can hear me okay, please? Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. If anyone has any questions during this presentation, can you guys please just put it in the chat box, not the question and answer box, because I'm going to be looking at the chat box. So what I'll do is I'll get started straight away.
It feels like Groundhog Day.
Yes, Jobkeeper seems to have come round again for another bite at the cherry. But anyway, what I'm going to do is the presentation is in two parts. The first part is specifically about the changes to Jobkeeper, and those changes impact on those currently enrolled, which will mean through to pretty much the end of September. It's not about, part one is not about the extension, which is, October to December and January to March. That's part two. Part one is purely about the changes that affect people now in Jobkeeper till the end of September who are enrolled. And I'm going to go over a few things that we've gone through months ago, just to refresh some people about some terms and paperwork that needs to be done, just to make sure you guys dot your I's and cross your T's with everything that needs to be done. And then part two of the presentation is about, I did a presentation a few weeks ago about Jobkeeper 2, which is from October to December and January to March. Those rules have changed as well. So I thought I might kill two birds. Yeah, I know, why not? Everything changes all the time. Kill two birds with one stone. And part two of this presentation is about going through those rules again under the now refreshed rules, which are, to be honest, a bit easier to meet than what they would have been prior. Now, before I start, I know there's going to be some people on here who aren't currently working with us as their accountant. So what I just wanted to briefly do was just say thank you for giving up your time as well as our lovely clients that we work with on a daily basis and enjoy doing so. But for those who don't know us, we're a small-ish boutique accounting firm based out of Melbourne, but we do service small business owners right around Australia and enjoy doing so. Where what we do is we consider ourselves to be on your side. So we're working with you and for you. We're passionate about educating you guys as business owners to claim as much as you legally are able to claim through your businesses and happily educate you accordingly. And we also try and do the best we can to make your situation as tax effective and flexible as is physically possible and make changes where required. And we have three main divisions that we run through our business. We've got our accounting division, we've got our bookkeeping division and our self-managed super fund division. They all work hand in hand. And what we've found in the last 2 years is a massive demand for small business owners who require the bookkeeping and accounting to be in the same left hand and right hand working together, because we find it's far more practical and far more efficient and effective for us to do the bookkeeping and accounting, because it's a seamless transition from the books through to the accounts. Because the negative or downside about us not doing the bookkeeping is we can't do an audit on it because we don't have enough time. So in effect, we rely heavily on what the bookkeeper has done, and then we work our magic from the books. But it's far more effective to work our magic with the bookkeeping and flowing it through into the accounting and tax and also into the future. Plus, we pride ourselves on being very proactive, and we rather than focus on the past, which is the tax return, we are very, very focused on the now and the future, and making sure you've got the strategies and can implement as much as you can to save, to put your money away for the future for you and your family, but also to do what you can to income split, pay less tax, maximize your deductions along the way.
Mm-hmm. Just one thing that you said, to the last 2 years, that's sort of our focus, but we have been in business for the last 16 years.
Oh yeah, no, but just bookkeeping. We had a lot of people screaming for us to start bookkeeping, and we eventually did start it, and it's just going gangbusters because of the demand to have accounting and bookkeeping in one space. Now, what I wanted to start with is our website, and I'll show you why. Two things about our website is on here tonight, there's going to be some forms that you potentially need. I'm going to show you where they are on the website so you can download them. They're under the resources section and then downloads. Now, the form on the left-hand side here, the ATO Self-Employed and Business Participant Jobkeeper Nomination Form, I'm going to go through it, but that's one form, and you can literally click on it and download it, and you can type on it. Once you've downloaded it, you can type on it and print it out and sign it. And the other form here, the ATO Jobkeeper Nomination Form, is for employees which you'll know after the presentation what I'm going to talk about, but it's basically for new employees who are employees who are now eligible for Jobkeeper, even though they might not have been at the 1st of March eligible, but they're eligible from the 1st of July. So there's the two forms you might potentially need access to.
Can I say something there, Adrian? With this particular opportunity that we've got, the beautiful, ATO Treasurer have put really tight deadlines on us. They've, only released it. They released it as a general format, and it wasn't made gazetted until last Friday. These forms that you're looking at here, this JobKeeper nomination form, I do suggest that you open it. And for those of you that have got your homework done with your start date for your employees, your types and your standard earnings, you'll probably, at the end of this, hopefully you're going to be able to have completed this so you can give it to the relevant employees that need it. The reason I'm saying you got to do that, because you have to have that to them by the 24th. Now, they are an internal document, but we're still trying to meet all the guidelines and all the rest of it. You do have to have these filled out by the 24th. And all the rest of the bits and pieces by the end of the month. So there is only literally 10 days to get this stuff together, guys. So I say download it now while we're in here, and we'll jump in there, and at the end of it, hopefully you can have it all completed.
And I'm going to, because unfortunately, what the government are really good at in these challenging times is actually spruiking what they're going to do. But the problem with us accountants and proactive accountants is we can't actually give advice until it's legal, like as in till it's law. So we had to hold off. We only found out about this on Monday. So apologise, it only became law late Friday. Our accounting body that I'm a member of only told us about it Monday morning. Hence why we've hastily cobbled together with as much information for you guys as possible to help you still meet the stringent deadlines that the government have put on us all. But we got used to that with the first JobKeeper, and now they're doing it again. But anyway.
And to that end too, share this, guys, because this knowledge is only new and hot and all the rest of it. We're all about supporting each other. So if you've got any other businesses that will need this information and they have that limited time to get it, put it out there. This is an opportunity for these businesses to get some money. So just share it.
We're going to be on that end at the end of, well, it'll either be tonight or tomorrow morning. Everyone who's registered and for the webinar will get a YouTube or MP4 version of it so they can watch it themselves. What Anita's saying is, so Anita's my wife. For those of you who don't know, she's my wife, also my co-partner of the business.
And unfortunately an accountant.
Yeah, she doesn't like to know herself as an accountant. But anyway, it's important. Well, we're happy for you to share this with any small business owner that you know may benefit from this knowledge, because the time is so pressing on this. They really do need to take action ASAP. Okay, now, the only other thing I want to draw your attention to on this website while I'm on here, and then I'll jump off it, is under resources and webinars, there's heaps of old webinars on here, but more specifically, and you can have access to these at any stage. You don't need to be a client to get access. There's a lot of good knowledge in here that you guys have free access to learn bits and pieces that are appropriate. But I'd like to draw your attention to this webinar on claiming equipment and cars that I did late last month, early this month, because there's a tight window on that of the ability to utilize these amazing laws of writing off equipment and cars, but they have to be written off and done and claimed before 31 December this year. So I'm not going to go through that, but I'll go into a lot of detail. So please, I would encourage you especially to watch that webinar, because there's lots of key knowledge that there is a timing issue on as well. There can be massive tax benefits for you in the next 5 months. So on that note, I'll jump off our website. So, and what I'll do, just bear with me guys, I'm just going to start the presentation.
There we go.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Hang on. That's the wrong one.
You'd think we'd be better at this by now.
Oh, no.
We've had a lot of practice.
No.
Sorry, guys. For those of our clients, as well, Adrian's getting this up online, you should have received when we do your payroll, you should have received an email from us today with the clients with the employees that we think are eligible. So if you want to have a look at that, and if you need to discuss it with us further, please do. But we have already sort of applied this knowledge to those clients that we do their payroll for. All right, we can see it now.
No, it's not. Sorry, I'm. Of course, this isn't working for me tonight. That'd be the way it is, wouldn't it? Sorry, guys.
Is that the right one?
Right, it's 2. That one. That should work. Yay! Sorry. Okay. Now I'm just going to leave the chat box open. What I'm going to do is I'll now go through the presentation. I'll pause. If you can hold your questions until I pause at the end of section 1, and I'll tell you when that is, and we'll go from there. So as I explained, it's about current Jobkeeper changes for those who are currently enrolled, and then explain a bit more about the extension and how that rules are made up. And that's basically from October to December and January to March. Okay. Now, basically, as I said to you, this is now about employee eligibility changes, which only got legislated last Friday, and we found out about on Monday. So it's those who can potentially benefit are those currently enrolled in Jobkeeper, and potentially those who weren't able to enroll in Jobkeeper on the 1st of March, but could under the new rules. So from the fortnight starting 3rd of August, I want to go through this really carefully. Now, you're going to get a recording of this, so I'm going to go through really quickly, so don't stress. You can stop, pause, listen again to anything later on. I'm just going to go at a really quick pace. So eligible employees now include those who were employed at the 1st of July 2020 and meet the following. So they're currently employed by an eligible employer, including if you were stood down or rehired. You were, for the eligible employer, either full-time or part-time at the 1st of July, or a long-term casual at the 1st of July, where you were employed on a regular and systematic basis for at least 12 months and not a permanent employee of any other employer. And you were 18 years or older at 1 July. And if you were 16 or 17, you may also qualify if they're independent. So in other words, they're not family of the owners and they're not undertaking full-time study. And you're either an Australian citizen at 1 July or an Australian tax resident at 1 July, and you're not in receipt of any Jobkeeper fortnight, government parental leave, or dad and partner pay under paid parental leave, or you're on work cover. If you're not on a work cover, workers' compensation, and you've completed the Jobkeeper nomination form, which we showed you before, and I'll go through a little bit more of it in a minute, agreeing to receive the Jobkeeper payments and from your employer, and that you're not receiving it from another employer, which is on the form. Which employees aren't eligible? I want to cover this as well, where you weren't employed until after 1 July. you left your employment before the 1st of July, or you've been nominated or agreed to be nominated by another employer, or if you're casual and you haven't worked on a regular or systematic basis for at least 12 months. Now, it's important to note, like with the original Jobkeeper back in April, if you decide to participate on the 1 July system for anyone who's eligible now, this was the same back then, and it's really important. You have to nominate all eligible employees. So you can't just pick and choose and go, yeah, I'll put him in, I won't put her in. No, everyone who's eligible at 1 July who isn't currently on Jobkeeper, and you have to put them all in. You can't pick and choose. It's a one in, all in philosophy.
Sorry,
okay?
Adrian, you said something important there. So if you're already an eligible employee and you've already filled out a nomination form, you do not need to do.
No, I'm going to cover that in a minute, but no, okay. No, you don't. So working out your eligible employees. So if you are a long-term casual, and this was covered a little bit before, and you have permanent employment elsewhere, you can't nominate here. You have to nominate your other employer that you permanently work for, because you can't nominate for Jobkeeper for more than one employer. Now, and if your employer has previously agreed to nominate another employer, so now say they were working somewhere else, right? And they've now come to you, the reality is, if they've left that employer and come to you between when they're an eligible employee for that employer and they've come to you before the 1st of July, they can now nominate for Jobkeeper for you for fortnights starting on the 3rd of August, which I'm going to cover in a minute. If they meet, pardon me, all of the following: that between the 1st of March and 1st of July, they stop being an employee of that previous employer, or if they weren't an eligible business participant. I'm sorry for using some languages some people might not understand. Just because I want to go over what I have to go over, but I don't want to go back to ground zero again and go through it all. All our other webinars will have all this sort of stuff that's on our website. At the time they agree to be nominated, your employee has not been rehired by their previous employer or restarted their engagement as a business participant, and that all other requirements to be an eligible employee for Jobkeeper fortnights starting on or after the 3rd of August, they meet as well. Nominating employees. What Jobkeeper is about, it's designed so that everyone who's eligible is paid a minimum of $1,500 a fortnight. And like I already said, it's not a pick and choose philosophy, it's one in, all in. Now, if you're already, like a lot of the business owners on this call, right, will be already enrolled in Jobkeeper, a lot of you. And what this is really about is if you've got additional employees that have come on that weren't eligible when the first Jobkeeper test was around on the 1st of March, that they're now, if they're an employee of yours at 1 July, then they're eligible to get Jobkeeper payments and you get Jobkeeper reimbursements as of the fortnight starting the 3rd of August. But it's important that you give each of your employees who's eligible an employee nomination notice within the required time. Now, and you need to do this as soon as possible. That bit's straight off the ATO website. What I got today from my accounting body is that they say that the eligible nomination forms have to be given to your eligible employees by the latest Monday the 24th, which is why I wanted to show you where the forms are, because you can download them and flick it off to them tomorrow, get them to sign them on the weekend. Worst case, get them to sign them Monday. Because at the end of the day, as long as you've got a signed nomination form on Monday, that's part one. And I'll cover some of the other things you got to do in a minute. But that's the important part, which is why I wanted to show you where the notice is. Now, if your employee that you give a nomination notice to agrees to be nominated, they must obviously return the completed notice signed, confirming that they're eligible and happy to participate. Okay, if they don't give you a signed notice back again, or they tick, no, I don't want to participate, there's nothing you can do. They've got to agree to be eligible and confirm they're eligible and also agree to participate.
But there you have met your criteria of.
Yes,
of
correct. If you offer it to them and they knock it back or say they're not eligible, then you've ticked the box on offering it to everyone and not picking and choosing. Now, with these nominations, you don't need to give them to the ATO. You just need to hold them on your files for record keeping obligations. For all our clients, we're, as you know, with the first time we did all this with you, we like you to send us a signed copy of all the nomination forms so we have a copy on file as well. But it is your obligation as the employer to hold these. If you get audited by the ATO, onus will be on you to have those forms and be able to produce them as to who's agreed and all that sort of stuff in the event of an audit. We've got them more just so that as a backup. Don't leave us as the sole responsibility. It's purely a backup. You guys have the obligation legally to have these documents as part of you running your businesses. And if you have given, and Anita said this before, if someone was working for you on the 1st of March and they're still working for you, you don't have to do anything for them because they're already in the system. So this is only about new people who have started after the 1st of March or people that didn't qualify at the 1st of March who now qualify based on these rules. Now, the process for nominating eligible business participants, for example, is a partner in a partnership, adult beneficiary, shareholder, director of a company, etc., who are not employees and not sole traders. That's the other form I had up before. I won't go into all the details about that because that's not really the scope for this, but that's the other form you need to do if that's more for new businesses, I think, who didn't qualify for Jobkeeper on the 1st of March, but that's beyond the scope of what we're doing now. And nominating yourself as a sole trader or business participant, I've already covered that. Sole traders, you can go through ATO Online, MyGov, or Business Portal, or through your tax agent, or complete the nomination form, which we just went through before. Now, this is the employee nomination notice. It's an example of the top part of it. You can see it's 3 pages. I haven't got the whole form in here. I just wanted to show you what it looks like. And it says Jobkeeper nomination notice 1 July. So where I showed you before under resources and downloads, for anyone who's eligible from 1 July, in other words, are employed at 1 July, and they are eligible, this is what you need to give them. So download it off our website and fill in your employer bit, get it to them to fill in their employee bit, sign it, date it, and tick whether they are eligible and whether they want to participate, and get that back by the Monday the 24th. And that's why I need to mention before, you guys are all going to get a video copy of this. We're more than happy for you to share this to other business owners because there is such tight timelines to do this in. Let everyone help each other. We're all here to help each other's businesses and support each other through this challenging time.
Especially us Victorians.
Yeah, especially even more so for us wonderful Victorians who were caged up for another couple of months. But anyway, I won't get into that. Now, this is an example of the top part of the business participation nomination notice, which is the other document that was under the resources download section, which I won't go through tonight, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. That's 4 pages. It's downloadable and you can type into it and all that sort of stuff.
Can I sort of say here, for most people that have been eligible, and we will have run through this, whether they can nominate for this one. As you said, this is more for new businesses or those that have become eligible.
Yes,
during
after the 1st of March, between now and 1st of July.
So like e.g. a Victorian business that might have been going all right until a lot of them have now had to shut down.
Yeah, they still have to be able to, I mean, I'm going to cover that in a minute, but they still have to pass the 30% test to be able to enroll.
Yeah.
And it's beyond the scope of tonight's call. But for some people, for example, for some businesses where they had grown so much in the last 12 months that the normal 30% drop test doesn't work, there are alternate tests that the ATO allow, which I'm not going to do that now. That's beyond what we're doing today. But therefore, the alternate tests are where the 30% drop test isn't appropriate. And it's normally in 3 or 4 different scenarios. One where you've had a significant amount of growth in the last 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and therefore the 30% drop isn't appropriate. There is a test that makes that practical. The second test is where you've got a irregular turnover in your business. There's a test that therefore the 30% drop wouldn't be always appropriate. That's an option. If you've bought a business or sold a business, that once again might affect the 30% drop. And if you've restructured your business, all four of those is where the 30% drop test does not, is not appropriate. But there is another option, but they're not simple. And you do need someone who really knows this stuff to be able to guide you through the process and the decision making around it. Because once you enroll in Jobkeeper, the important part about it is the month that you're enrolling for, and for most of you this is irrelevant, but the month that you're enrolling for, if that 30% drop, the tests is met, the important part is you've only got to make sure you meet it and document how you've dropped that to meet the enrollment. For the rest of the time, it doesn't matter whether your turnover goes up and down or sideways. Once you can prove you passed the first test and you enroll in a certain month, then you're cleared for the rest of Jobkeeper, which is only August and September for those who are left in the first Jobkeeper.
But the one thing I would stress is, especially for Victorians, have a look at it, guys, because a lot of you businesses were still able to trade a little bit, and now we know you haven't been able to. So I can't stress enough, take the time, have a look, see if you now qualify, and then you can go through this process and get the benefits that are out there for you.
But that's part one. But part two might be appropriate still for some businesses outside of Victoria. I think quite a few Victorian businesses will qualify once I explain part two. They still will qualify. But there might be some businesses in other states that are still hurting and still might meet. The part two qualification is not just Victorian businesses, guys.
No,
it's
for sure.
It's Australia-wide, and it depends on how you've gone over this period. But I know the Victorian businesses are going to be hurting more than others because of this another shutdown for 6, maybe 7, 8 weeks. Who knows what it's going to end up being.
But you've also got lots of different industries that are still being impacted.
Yes.
You know, the holiday accommodation,
retail,
nightclubs,
cafes, nightclubs. So many places are still really hurting. So please stay tuned for part two as well. But part one is more about making sure if you're in Jobkeeper, get the most out of it that's available for you in the next 2 months. Why not? We've all paid a lot of tax. We should be trying to get what we can to help our businesses come through this other side and kick some goals. Now, after you've worked out who is eligible, you've got to start paying Jobkeeper. And as I said, it's a minimum of $1,500 before tax per fortnight. And as long as you continue paying them is as long as you will get the reimbursement for. Because for those of you who don't know, Jobkeeper is an arrears system. So what I mean by that is you pay August, you've got to pay everyone who you want to, say that you've got business, say you've got employees who you're enrolling in August because they haven't met the criteria, right? You've got to pay them their $1,500 per fortnight in August to get paid by the tax office back again in September. So you've got to put the cart before the horse and actually enroll, get your eligible employment nominations, and then pay them the minimum amount per fortnight for the August period so that when the ATO can then reimburse you in September. Okay?
Do you cover the fact that there's a deadline on that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. The amount of Jobkeeper, this is a summary. As I said before, you get $1,500 per employee per fortnight as long as they're eligible and you keep paying them, and it's paid in arrears. This just gives you an idea of the ATO fortnights. I'm not going to go through it there. What's important is if you go to September, that's when you get paid back from the ATO. So it relates to August. If you look at the Jobkeeper fortnights in September, against September, it's fortnight starting 20 July, 3rd of August and 17th of August, right? For the new rules, the 20th of July is not relevant. It's only for the 3rd of August and 17th of August fortnights that you've got to pay people. And I'm going to cover that in a minute. So employees, what do I need to do? Identify your new eligible employees who work for you at 1 July. Send them all an employee nomination notice. I've put by the 21st because at the time, that's what we thought it was. I now got told today it's Monday the 24th is when you've got to send them the nomination and get them to fill it in. It will take them 5 minutes to complete. There's nothing in the form at all. If they agree to nominate, make sure you pay them the minimum JobKeeper payment of $1,500 per fortnight for both of the fortnights commencing 3rd of August and 17th of August. And the ATO are happy if you back pay whatever hasn't been paid from the 3rd of August and into the 17th of August fortnight, as long as you back pay everybody by the 31st of August, which, as you know, is only about 10 days away. So the paperwork part of it's one element, but then you've got to do all the back payments for the 3rd and the 17th fortnights, and they've got to be physically paid to the employees by the 31st and through your single touch payroll. Now, I'm assuming most of you probably use Xero, but if you don't, whoever you use will have a similar system. You also have to notify the ATO via your single touch payroll which employees are now eligible for JobKeeper and from what date. So you've got to notify the ATO in your single touch payroll and back pay them all before the 31st, okay? And to claim JobKeeper, you must also enroll, obviously, by the 31st as well, because that all goes without saying, you know what I mean? Now, the only other thing I've been told here, which I got through today, so sorry it's not in the presentation, this is why it's not in the presentation. I've covered the 24th of August for the nomination form. I've covered the back payments and enrolments by 31st of August. But also for those of you who haven't been in JobKeeper before, you also have to do a monthly declaration to the ATO or you don't get your coin. So you don't get your JobKeeper reimbursement. Enrolling them, nominating them, paying them, using the single touch payroll, all of that's wonderful and all has to be done. But if you don't do your monthly declaration, you don't get a cent back from the ATO, okay? So effectively, you've got to also lodge your declaration with the ATO. You can't lodge it any earlier than the 1st of September because it applies to the 31st of August. So the earliest you can do your declaration is the 1st of September. The latest you can do your declaration, and this is Court Businesses Out, is the 14th of the month after the month. So in other words, you've got till the 14th of September to lodge your monthly declaration. Now, obviously, if they're owing you money, you're going to want your declaration done as soon as possible, hopefully the 1st of September, because in our experience with all the clients we're doing this for, you get the payment back from the ATO in about 4 business days, roughly, from when you do your declaration. It'll hit your bank account, which is wonderful and helps you reimburse what you funded. So do your declaration. In the declaration, for those of you who don't know, what you have to do is you have to declare which employees were eligible, just to confirm it, and what your turnover was actually for the month and what you're estimating it to be for the next month. Now, understand something. The only time that declaration becomes a massive issue is in the first month that you're enrolling. Now, for most of you guys, that's not relevant because remember what I said, in the first month you're enrolling, that's the month you have to be able to prove that you're down 30% and you need substantiation for that. So it's important that that turnover that you put in for the actual, for the month that you've just passed through, if that's the first month that you're nominating enrolling, make sure that is also the 30% drop figure, because that's going to be really important in an audit. The estimate for the next month, an estimate's fine. It does not matter. It can go up, it can go down, it can go sideways. Once you've got past your first month, then the estimate makes no difference. And month in, month out, so in other words, at the end of September, which is the last month of JobKeeper number 1, you'll have to do a declaration again. You won't obviously have to estimate your first of your October, but you'll have to give you an actual for September. So don't get too concerned about the estimate and the actual unless it's the first month you're enrolling. But
can I just say, so guys, if you've got any questions, if you want them to drop them into that chat before Adrian will go on to the next section.
Yeah, well, we're now finishing, we've now finished section 1. So what I'll do, whoops, is, okay, a couple of questions. Employees and sole traders. Okay, good question. if you're currently enrolled in JobKeeper 1, we'll call it, and your employees are eligible already under JobKeeper 1, or you may be even enrolling them now under the, because under the JobKeeper, there was 2 tests. There was the 1st of March test, which was the first batch of JobKeeper, and the 1st of July test, which is now the new batch where you can potentially put new people in, right? Anyone who is eligible under JobKeeper 1, if your business qualifies for JobKeeper 2A and 2B, which I'm going to cover in a minute, they continue to be eligible, but the rates are slightly reduced, but we're going to cover that in a minute. So your automatic, the employees who you keep, remember, they've still got to be employees. So you've got to keep paying them. They've got to be employed. You've got to be paying JobKeeper. You've got to be paying them the minimum JobKeeper all the way through this, right? Or you don't get reimbursed. But yes, if you qualify, and if they're eligible in JobKeeper 1 and your business is eligible for JobKeeper 2A and 2B, or 2A or 2B, then yes, those people are still eligible, and there's no new application process required.
The answer to your question is there is no new application. And that's for the existing ones now. We're only doing new applications for those that are now in this new eligibility, meeting the new eligibility requirements.
So new employees or new businesses between 1st of March and 1st of July. Another question is, are international students meeting all the criteria? I think that's something we have a conversation about, because it depends on their age. Remember, they had to be 18 at 30 June or 1st of July, but they also had to be a tax resident or an Australian citizen. So it depends on where they fit into those. Now, I've got some other questions here before we move on. Just bear with me, guys. Someone asked a question about the forms. The forms are only for new people. So new employees or new business participants. What if you had a new employee start in August? Sorry, they're not going to be eligible. They had to be employed at the 1st of July. So anyone who's been employed after the 1st of July is not eligible. Next question, if our numbers are better than the same period in 19, are we out at 28 September? Generally speaking, yes. So I'm expecting that a lot of businesses, maybe excluding some Victorian businesses, but a lot of businesses around Australia, excluding some industries that are clearly really hurting, I think will drop out at the end of September, which is, but for those who are potentially eligible, I'm going to cover that in a minute, part 2A and part 2B. So yes, potentially you will be dropping out at the end of September. But having said that, if new employees have started and you're entitled to get 1 new employee or 2 new employees, it's still $1,500 a fortnight you can potentially get reimbursed for.
Now you're talking about.
By the ATO, by the government, right? So it's still worth getting what you can in the next 2 months while the system's still operational for those who are on JobKeeper 1, because at the end of the day, you're still entitled to this all the way through to the 28th September under the new rules of 1 July testing. So if you're eligible, it's worth doing it potentially, but it's a horses for courses option, right? Now, next question is.
So Adrian, can I confirm that new employees that now qualify for JobKeeper will only be able to receive $3,000 for August? Yep. People already in JobKeeper will receive $4,500.
Correct. Yeah. Based on, let me go back to this. That's a good question. Let me go back to this one here. What the person is talking about is this here. The ATO fortnights for this month run from the 20th of July, start at the 20th of July, 3rd of August and 17th of August. There's actually 3 fortnights for the ATO this month. So those that have, that's a really good question. Those that have been already in JobKeeper through this whole thing, you technically get 3 fortnights worth, so $4,500 per employee reimbursement if they're eligible for the whole, through that whole period. If you're only adding them now, you can only add them from the 3rd of August, which means, yes, the first fortnight drops off and they only get the 3rd fortnight and the 17th fortnight. So yes, they will get the $3,000 and other people would get the $4,500. So that's a good question.
Okay, the next question is, if an employee was eligible for first round but declined, do we need to ask them again? I'd say no.
You can ask them, but you don't have to ask them, because if they've been an employee through this whole time period, right? Remember, under JobKeeper 1 rules on 1st of March plus the JobKeeper rules on the 1st of July, it's a one in all in philosophy, right? So my attitude is it depends, because if you offered it to them on the 1st of March, in the March testing for the April, and they declined, you've fulfilled your obligation. If they're still an employee, you don't have to offer it, right? But is there any harm in asking them? And they might change their mind. I would argue they can change their mind and say, well, yes, I'm happy to sign a nomination form and be eligible.
I think it's subject to the circumstances, but no, I would say the answer is no. Probably you're not obliged to.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
But there's no harm in asking them to, because if they're happy to sign, they'll just have to sign a nomination form by Monday, and you'll have to back pay them where it's appropriate for the 3rd and 20th, so for the 2 fortnights. But there's no harm in, you don't have to offer it, but you can choose to offer it.
And so, I would say that we really would pay probably to have some conversations with some employees that might have been doing 2 jobs earlier on and now aren't, because especially like Victoria, they might, they might have been doing something for someone else, and their circumstances may have changed. So I would definitely encourage people to have a chat to their employees if they think that might be applicable.
Now, another question, if a new employee started mid-June, he should be eligible for the new Jobkeeper as he did not work since the 5th of August. I already paid his annual leave, so do I reverse the annual leave?
Hold on, I'm not...
Hang on. I think what you're saying, and please clarify if I'm wrong, they started mid-June, and I don't know if they're on annual leave because there's no work and they've been stood down, because I'm not sure of the situation. And it might pay to be more one-on-one about this, but hypothetically, if they've started mid-June, as long as they're a permanent part-time employee or a full-time employee at 1 July, which they would meet, it would then come back to whether you'd have to send them a nomination notice. They have to agree to nominate and be eligible to nominate and agree to nominate, and then you've got to pay them. I think annual leave can still be deemed to be part of JobKeeper payments.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, because that's getting into HR. I mean, I'm not 100% sure about the HR side of that. I should put that out there. That's probably more a HR question about, and I'm hoping whoever that is has got an employment lawyer they can run that past.
We
do if you don't, we do, and we won't put it in this forum, but if you want to, please send us an email in, mark it to my attention, and ask, and I can give you, if you don't have someone. But I would strongly say potentially yes, but how to handle the payments of the wages / annual leave, I think is more a HR question, and I think you should bounce that off your HR advisor to make sure that you do the right thing.
I don't think there's any more questions. Have you got anything more?
Let me have a look.
Them through, otherwise we will move on.
Any more questions, guys?
All right.
Oh, hang on, there's one more question.
Okay, where are we? What if our numbers are lower compared to last year but don't reach the 30%?
So hang on, I don't know if you're saying, did you ever qualify for JobKeeper, or are you saying, because it depends, I don't know if you can clarify that. You're already qualified for JobKeeper. Yeah. So what that's saying is, just say so thank you for clarifying that. You're talking about JobKeeper too. I'm going to come to that in a minute. I'm going to now cover that in part 2. So if you can maybe hold that off, but technically speaking, it's going to depend on your situation that I'm going to cover in JobKeeper too.
Yeah,
but
so
at least
come back to that.
We'll come back to that. If I don't answer your question in the next part of this presentation, please hit me up again with another question. But in reality is everybody who's enrolled can potentially still benefit by new staff and all that till the end of end of September. And then we have to reassess whether they're eligible for JobKeeper 2 Part A and 2 Part B, which I'm going to cover now. So,
okay.
Hang on, one more question.
How regular does the casual employee need? We've really covered that a lot in our other...
Yeah, but what it really is systematic. They want it to be, what was the wording? Regular and systematic over 12 months. So what they're wanting to stop is someone who works 5 hours one week, 20 hours the next week, 2 hours the next week, 30 hours the next week. They're wanting someone who consistently works throughout the 12 months with the odd exception. The trend is consistency of work and consistency of hours. That's what they're wanting, to be a casual to pass the test, and 12 months. If the casual hasn't been there 12 months, it's irrelevant. But to be consistent and regular, they're wanting consistency of hours and consistency of days of work, and not a yo-yo, which is associated with some casuals.
I've got a question for you, and I don't know that you'll be able to answer that. Further to that is like, okay, what if their hours have been affected because of COVID?
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I wouldn't mind betting that there, and I think we need to seek counsel on this if someone specifically has got this question. But I wouldn't mind betting if the hours are affected by COVID, they're equivalent to have been stood down. I would imagine you wouldn't take those casual hours into account when they're being stood down because there's no work. Yeah. It would be based on their pre-COVID hours over a long period of time to see what the trend is. Now, if that trend was still not consistent and regular, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But if that trend was consistent and regular all the way through until COVID hit, I would argue you're probably a good chance to qualify.
Yeah.
But we'd have to seek counsel and probably have a one-on-one chat about that.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys, before I...
We're all good.
No?
Alrighty.
Okay, I'll now get on to the next part. So we're now going into part 2, guys, which is the Jobkeeper extension. Now, I did a webinar on this a few weeks ago, and it's just changed. It's changed again. So I thought it was a great situation to handle that now too, just to see if anyone's eligible and can then factor this into their planning over the next few months. So, as you all probably know, the government extended Jobkeeper for another 6 months until the 28th of March. As you know, I'm not going to go for point 2 because we already know about that. Now, payments are dropping. I'm going to cover more details in a minute. Any questions, guys, please type them into the chat box, and I'll come back to them. The payments, I'm going to cover in more detail, but as you know, the payments are $1,500 a fortnight at the moment. And if you're eligible, the employer, if the employer is eligible for the Jobkeeper extension part 2A and 2B, then they reduce to $1,200 and then $1,000 from $1,200 from the 28th of September and $1,000 from the 4th of Jan. But a big change is that there's lower rates for employees and business participants that work fewer than 20 hours a week in the period that you're looking at. So from the 28th of September, so remember, everyone who's currently enrolled in Jobkeeper is fine, right? So at the 28th of September, all bets are off, and we're now got to consider whether we're eligible for 2 Part A and then eventually 2 Part B. Now, 28th of September, businesses who are seeking to claim Jobkeeper must be able to demonstrate that they're still suffering a significant decline in turnover using the actual GST turnover rather than projected. For you guys that can remember this, which is probably going back a while now, we were able to use a mixture of actual and projected when we did the first lot of testing. For this Part 2A and 2B, they want you to use actual GST turnover. So what that means is from the 28th of September, you'll need to reassess your eligibility with reference to the actual GST turnover in the September quarter to be eligible for the Jobkeeper payments from the 28th of September to the 3rd of January. And from the 4th of January, Part 2B, you need to further reassess your turnover for eligibility for Jobkeeper and be able to demonstrate that you can have shown an actual GST turnover decline in the December quarter to be eligible for Jobkeeper from the 4th of January till the 28th of March. So they're 2 separate assessments. So some businesses might qualify for 2 Part A and not for 2 Part B. Some might get it for none. Some might get it for 2A, not 2A and then 2B. You just don't know. That's why you've got to reassess and keep your eye on the prize to see which, and some might get it for none, for all of it, right? So to be eligible for Jobkeeper under the extension 2A and 2B, you still need to be able to demonstrate that you've experienced a decline in turnover of at least 30%. If you don't meet the turnover drop test, effectively, you still get Jobkeeper till the 28th of September. And if you fail the test for the September quarter and fail the test for the December quarter, that's it for you. No more Jobkeeper, job done for you.
So could you fail it for the first quarter and then still
I would imagine, yes.
Second quarter?
Okay. Well, it's a separate test.
Okay.
Your business might get hammered in in the December quarter and you compare it to a year before and you're down 30%, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's not a one in all in thing. It's a separate test.
Okay.
I would imagine it's going to be rare unless there's some obscure Victorian incident that hammers somewhere, unless your industry is down this whole time, in which case you're going to get it all the way through. But I think it's going to be rare that you'll miss the 30% in the September quarter and then get the 30% drop in December quarter. I would have thought that'd be highly unlikely, but it is possible. And yes, you're right.
So the thing is, have a look. Don't
Yes.
just take it for granted.
Yes.
Have a look.
Yeah. Now, the rates from the 28th of September to the 3rd of January, which is part 2A, the rate goes from $1,500 a fortnight to $1,200 a fortnight for eligible employees who are working in the business. This is the key, for 20 hours or more a week on average in the 4 weeks of pay before either the 1st of March or 1st of July. So it depends which test you've been eligible under. If you've already got someone working for you, that was eligible in April because of the 1st of March test, and they continue to be employed all the way through, it'll be the 4 weeks of pay periods before the 1st of March. And if they're new or recently qualified, it'll be the 4 weeks of pay periods before the 1st of July to decide what the average is per week. And to get the $1,200 a fortnight, you've got to work more than 20 hours a week on average. If you don't work more than 20 hours a week, your pay drops to $750 a fortnight. From the 4th of January till the 28th, same concept. So I'm not going to go through the concept, but the rate drops to $1,000 a fortnight for those who work more than 20 hours a week on average, and $650 a fortnight for those others who don't work more than 20 hours a week on average. Obviously, because it's an arrears test, you're going to have to self-nominate who's eligible. So for instance, this is where it's a bit tricky. So say you get towards the end of September, you're going to have to look at your September figures really closely as you near the end of September, because the first ATO period starts from the 28th of September, right?
Good on him.
But you've got a few days leeway. You don't have to panic. I think you've got to make the pay in that fortnight. That's important. That's the fortnight that starts the 28th of September. But my understanding of the rules are that you've got to make the payment between the 28th and whatever the fortnight is.
And what about the nomination?
No, they will have already nominated, because it'll be based on the 1st of July. Who was involved? Remember that these people should already be nominated.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the employees. I'm talking about the employer.
They don't need to nominate if they're already in.
Okay, they'll just continue.
No. It's basically self-assessment. You've only got one enrollment. If you've enrolled in Jobkeeper, you're enrolled in Jobkeeper. What will have to happen though is towards the end of September, you know how part 2A and part 2B, part 2A was you had to be able to show an actual 30% drop in your turnover to be able to qualify for Jobkeeper for the October to December quarter. But what that means is towards the end of September, I think you'll have a pretty good idea when you're getting towards the end of September, if you're on top of your figures like you should be, and hopefully you are, which is where your bookkeeper and accountants become super paramount with all this sort of stuff, because you've got to be up to date and all over this, especially because look, to be honest, guys, you guys that have a handle on a pulse on your business, mid-September, you're going to have a pretty damn good idea whether you're likely to be down 30% on last year or not with the 2 weeks or 1 week that have got left. So you've got to be all over this. If it's close, you might have to sit and wait a little bit. But if it's obvious that you're going to be over or under, then you can take the action before the 28th and start paying the $1,200 a fortnight or $750 a fortnight. Okay. So what it means is you're going to have to start, because you've got to make those minimum payments of $1,200 and $750, and once you get into the next batch, $1,000 and $650, right?
That's not too bad because it's the 4th of Jan, but it's the end of year.
4th of Jan, yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is towards the end of September and towards the end of December, you're going to have to be all over your numbers to see when compared to last year, whether you're likely to be down 30% or not in the September quarter. And as Anita said before, don't just assume because you're not down for September that you're not going to be down for December. Keep an eye on it, because, you know, if you're eligible, you're eligible, right? Get what you're entitled to. et cetera, et cetera. So it's important that you're all over that. And as I said, it's beyond the scope of this. There are some alternate tests where that's not appropriate, but that's outside the scope of this. And employers continue to, you've still got to make your payments equal or greater than the minimum JobKeeper amount before taxed. So that's why you've got to be all over your figures at the end of September and at the end of December to make sure you start paying for the next quarter and the next quarter the minimum requirements before taxed of the figures that we've already gone through. Now, we've already done this, but it's clarified a little bit more. In order to be eligible for the extension from period 1, which is 2A as I call it, from 28 September to 3rd of Jan, you need to be able to demonstrate your actual turnover for July, August and September quarter 20 is down at least 30% compared to the same quarter in 19. And to be eligible for JobKeeper.
September quarter 19, yeah?
Yes, correct. And JobKeeper 2B, in order to be eligible for part 2B of that, you've got to be able to be down for the October, November, December 20 quarter compared to the December quarter 19. You've got to be down your 30%. It's crucial to be all over that. Now, they say that businesses will generally be able to assess based on your BAS figures. Well, I would argue it depends on when your BAS figures are done and reconciled. I think you're going to have to keep an eye on this in the month at the end of it. Mid-September onwards, you're going to have to keep an eye on it. And mid-December onwards, you're going to have to keep an eye on it. And I think you'll get a feel for it. I mean, there might be some that'll be touch and go. They're the ones you've got to monitor probably week by week. But I think you'll get a pretty good feel by the end of it to see whether you're actually entitled to or not.
Can I just go back there for a bit? I was just reading that bottom bit. The ATO will have discretion to extend the time an entity has to pay.
Don't even bother. I didn't go into it. This is because they can give you an extension of time to make payments to employees to meet the wage condition, which is paying the minimum amounts by the due dates. But I wouldn't bother because the only time they've ever done that is this situation like we've got today, which I found out today, where they're giving everyone till the 31st of August to make back payments and all that. They tend to not go there, so don't rely on that at all. Do not rely on it.
No, they don't care. They only give you 11 days to go.
I know. Well, I actually blame the government more than I blame the ATO. The ATO are the pawns in the government who are trying to do things but not giving business owners enough time. And it's falling back onto the bookkeepers and accountants. Now, this is an example that I'll just run through about retesting under the JobKeeper extension 2A/2B. I'm going to go through it just to, it's all here, so I'll go through it relatively quickly. In this situation, the person, the business they were running was a cafe. Oh, it's probably not a great example. This is from the ATO because cafes will have been hammered. But in this example, they were down 70% in April, which is no surprise because April was the month that most businesses got absolutely hammered. So effectively, they were starting to get JobKeeper from April through to the 27th of September, right? So clearly they met the 30% decline for the old JobKeeper 1. Now, what they've then put up here is the actual figures for July, August and September 20 versus July, August, September. The September quarter, they were 400. And this is ex-GST turnover, guys, just so you know. It's not including GST. It's excluding GST turnover. Okay, so it's if you're on cash or accruals, it depends on what your GST registration is. If your GST registration is accruals, all these figures are on accruals. If your GST registration is cash, all these figures are on cash. So I'm going to put that aside for now. But the GST turnover for the quarter for 20 was 400 versus 600. And as you can see, that meant a 33% decline. So what that means is they qualified for JobKeeper 2 Part A because they're down 30%. So they had to start making their JobKeeper payments for the fortnight starting 28th of September till the fortnight ending 3rd of January. Now, what I think will be the case in the majority of cases, except a few exceptions, in this example, their turnover then recovered a little bit and they're only down 20%. That means they weren't eligible for Part 2B of JobKeeper. So in the scenario above, there's all these different scenarios. So Carmen was working full-time at the cafe through February, and I think these are good to go through actually. Carmen, who was the owner, was working full-time at the cafe through February. So because she was full-time, she was doing more than 20 hours. So she's entitled to claim the $1,200 per fortnight for the first extension 2A. as an eligible business participant. She's also got 3 full-time employees who are also eligible for the $1,200 a fortnight because they were all doing 20 hours or more a week through February. Carmen has another employee who worked different hours, 14 one hours, 20 hours another week. During the 2 pay periods, 36 hours. On average, Chris worked less than 20 hours during this pay period. So that means that Chris was only eligible for $750 a fortnight, which is all she was required to pay from the 28th of September to the 3rd of January. Remember, these are minimum payments, guys. It's not like it's beyond the scope of this call. There are rules around what you, depending on what they're working, whether they're working, how many hours they're working, all that, what the minimum requirements are, they need to be paid under Fair Work and HR rules. This is purely about Jobkeeper. So the minimum payments, if they were getting no work for you, these are the minimum payments you were making. If, for instance, Carmen was on a $2,000 a week, a fortnight wage, well, you just pay her $2,000 and you get a $1,200 reimbursement. I've covered all that in other webinars. I'm not going to go through that today, but Chris, in this example, is only entitled to $750 a fortnight because his average was less than 20 hours a week. And then there's another lady called Kathy, who's a long-term casual. Now, they look at the pay periods and fortnights, and she was employed on average less than 20 hours a week. So once again, Carmen's only entitled to $750 a fortnight. And then there's Charles, who works part-time because he was employed before 1 July, et cetera, et cetera. And his average was 20 hours a week. So Carmen, sorry, I'll just take a drink.
It was average less than 20 hours a week.
So they're entitled to $750. The difference between all this is most of these guys were all on the 1st of March test, a lot of them, because they're already employed. What they're showing in this example is other people who employed after the 1st of March and before the 1st of July, you use the same rules for different test periods to work out which amount you're meant to pay them. It's the same concept, just different test periods, which I've covered previously in the notes. So that person, Carmen, would then be entitled to only $750 as she averaged only 20 hours a week.
So basically, if you find that you are eligible, you are going to have to look at every employee's situation differently because we haven't got that blanket 1,500. It is now going to be
a bit more work.
Yeah, it's going to be specifically what they're working. I've got a question and I don't think you're going to be able to answer it.
They don't ask.
Someone else might ask it. So when we're referring to the owner of the business when they're not an employee and they're looking to do, what did they get?
The eligible business participant.
That's the one. How are they going to actually prove that they're working 20 hours or
look,
or less?
I would argue it's impossible to know what hours they're working, but if that's your full-time business,
yeah,
I don't think you're going to have any problem arguing you're working 20 hours a week and no one would even try and refute that. If you were working somewhere else as an employee or you had another business, gets a bit tricky. But if this is your only form of income as the business owner, I don't think you're going to have one problem whatsoever in being able to prove you're the 20 hours minimum and hence qualify for the $1,200 and $1,000 a fortnight. I don't think that's hard to work out at all.
Okay, thank you.
Now, question time for part 2A and part 2B. Okay, what have we got?
No, this one's been answered.
No, this isn't.
Yeah, you answered it. You have.
Oh, okay. All right. Any questions, guys, on part 2A and part 2B? I'll just sit for a minute. The presentation's basically done.
While everyone's sort of having a chance to think there and just slightly on a slightly different topic, once again, guys, especially for Victorians, remember there's some grants out there. I know that we've spoken to most of our Victorian businesses and have had a chat to them about getting the grants. But as we want this to go to the wider general public as well, just make sure that you are availing yourself of them. There is one that you can get that's 10,000. Yeah.
Yeah, but it depends what you got the first time, I think, doesn't it?
Whether you claimed the first time. Yeah, some people did. There was 5,000 that they claimed. They automatically got the second 5,000, but others didn't claim that first 5,000. You are now entitled to 10,000. I can't remember.
And I think the main requirements for the Victorian businesses out there were if you're on Jobkeeper already enrolled, and you can prove it with an ID number off one of the declarations, which is obviously the monthly declarations, which is easy to do. The only other requirements are you need to have an ABN, you need to be work cover registered, you need to be GST registered. All of you guys would tick all the boxes on all the other requirements. The main thing was if you're enrolled in Jobkeeper, and a lot of the other requirements you tick the boxes on automatically because you're an employer. And I'm assuming if you've got employees, you'll be on work cover. If you're work cover, you're probably going to be GST registered. They're the main box tick items. They're the main box tick items. And if you're entitled to it, get it, because every bit helps. And from what we've seen from the Victorian government, it takes a good week to 2 weeks to process. So, get it in as quick as you can. I think it's open still to September sometime.
Yeah, it is.
For the Victorian guys.
And there's something that said in here that one of our clients, they did this and they did get it. It took 14 days to get the 15K. So yeah, it does take a little time to process for sure. Now the questions for you are,
okay, the next question.
It is, will there be any alternative turnover tests like last time, or just the 30% drop?
I think the alternative tests are the same, but remember you're comparing September quarter 20 to September quarter 19 and December quarter 20 to December quarter 19. So it's really going to depend on how appropriate those tests are relative to those quarters. Mm-hmm. So I think, honestly, I can't answer that definitively without having conversations. And I think to be honest, and Anita's already mentioned this, I think a lot of these things, when you're getting into these next 2A and 2B, I think there's going to be need to be some one-on-one time with your accountant who's switched on in this space, because you're going to need to go back and forth a little bit and go through the rules with a fine-tooth comb and see who's eligible, the 20-hour tests, all these other little nitpicky things, even turnover, how much is it relative to last year? Are the alternate tests appropriate? All those sorts of things that we did last time, we're going to have to compare them and consider the relevancy of them this time. But it's a separate application of those tests, because first time round it was where it was then. This time round it's different. So I think we'd need to have a one-on-one about that to really do that justice.
Okay, next question.
Next question.
The Jobkeeper 2, my business would decline by 10 to 20% compared to last September quarter. What would be the alternate tests to see eligibility?
No, the alternate tests, without going, because honestly, I'm not joking, I reckon I could have a half-hour session to an hour session on the alternate tests.
We have done a fair bit on it, haven't we?
I'll go along and have a look at our website in a minute to see if there's actually.
We'll keep going.
I'll have a look in a minute, okay, before I finish that. But the alternate tests are not easy, and there's not a lot out there on them. Potentially, yes. And this is where I say it's important to seek advice from people who understand this, because you're going to have one-on-ones to work through these little anomalies and possibly seek clarification on it too. Okay.
The next one's similar.
I don't have previous year's
turnover. I don't have previous year turnover, as it's a newly purchased business with no goodwill.
I know that person and they're a client of ours. So I would say we'll reach out and have a conversation about that, because I'd already flagged, because I knew this was, you were one of the unfortunate business owners who bought a business after first COVID and before these new tests. So you were in limbo where you couldn't get anything, which was quite frustrating. But we will now assess those tests based on you and having a one-on-one chat about it.
Yep. So the next question is, I think I know the answer, but we'll ask anyway. If you are down 2 months by 30%, but only down 10% for the last month.
It depends what the 3 months are added up together. 1 month by 1 month makes no difference. They're going to look at the whole 3 months, and understand too, be careful with this. There are integrity measures in place to blatantly manipulate income and all that.
To avoid people blatantly doing this.
So be careful.
And they are auditing.
Oh yeah, they are. So yes, there's a little bit of leeway here, but don't do anything blatant. But the reality of it is, it's the quarter that matters, not a month. So it depends on what the three months add up together that are relevant.
Okay, so hi, just to clarify, my figures as of now will mean I won't qualify for Jobkeeper 2. So this means I will stop allocating Jobkeeper payments to start.
No. It's
as at 31st of August.
No, because Jobkeeper 1 goes all the way through to 27th of September. So if you've got, so two parts to this. If you've got employees who are currently eligible and you've been paying them for months, right? You keep paying them under Jobkeeper until the end of Jobkeeper 1, which is, I think the fortnight ends the 27th of September.
Yes.
If you've got new people who are eligible because of the 1 July test that weren't eligible on the 1 March, but they are eligible and you're going to offer it to all them, then you likewise keep paying them under the current Jobkeeper rules of 1,500 minimum till the 27th of September. Only if you don't qualify for Jobkeeper 2 do you stop paying at the end of that point under minimum Jobkeeper rules. You've got to go through all the way through to the fortnight ending 27 September under Jobkeeper 1, whether they qualify under the 1st of March test or the 1st of July test. So please don't stop paying them at 31st of August. No. The 31st of August is purely a date you've got to pay new employees by, the minimum 1,500 a fortnight, who are eligible and who nominate and all that sort of gear.
And weren't already
on Jobkeeper. These are the people that are new in your business or didn't qualify at the 1st of March. You've got to pay them their back payments by the 31st of August, but you keep paying them all the way through the 27th of September to the equivalent of a minimum of 1,500 a fortnight. Okay, there's another one over here. I'm just going to...
It says for the quarter ending September 30.
Yes, that's correct. The quarters are ending 30 September and 31 December for 2A and 2B. How do you submit the information for the extra turnover test? No, I imagine there's going to be, and we don't know any of this. This is a very good question. I would assume that they'll keep going with their monthly declarations that they have been doing all the way through Jobkeeper 1. I would imagine, I doubt they'll change their system. You'll have to do a declaration at the end of each month again to qualify to get your reimbursement of the prior months.
So you'll be leaving your employees as being eligible in the system. So that normal process where the ATO know that all these relevant payments have been made.
Yeah, well, if they're eligible under 1st of March or 1st of July, so they're either being paid all the way through or they've started to be paid from the 3rd of August all the way through. If you're eligible for 2A and or 2B, as long as you've made the minimum payments in that time of the 1,200, 1,000, 750 or 650, right? Then at the end of each of those months, like you've been doing, there'll be a declaration where you'll have to declare how many staff you've made it to, what you've made, all that sort of stuff like we're doing now. Yep. I imagine there'll be the same declarations. There's another question over here. Dentists are usually paid...
Okay, I'll read it, because dentists are usually paid based on the takings on the preceding month, e.g. paid in July based on June taking. So the September quarter turnover based on the billings for July, August and September. This is because our June and July billings are normal, but our August paid in September and September paid in October
I understand what the question is.
Massively affected.
I think, because I don't know who this is and that's fine, I think it's going to come back to how your GST, because you remember all these figures are derived based on GST turnover. So it's going to come back to, is your GST registration cash or accruals? If your whatever that registration is, they're the figures that are relevant to these quarters. So in other words, if your GST is on a cash basis, then it'll be the cash amount received in the September quarter 20 versus the cash amount received in the September 19. If it's accruals, it'll be done on invoices raised for the September quarter 20 versus invoices raised for the September quarter 19. I don't want to make this too complicated, but whatever I understand your question, and the relevant here is your GST registration will dictate how you have to compare, but it's like for like. So however you work out the September 20 quarter will be the same for September 19, December 20, December 19. It'll either be GST cash, or GST accruals. Yeah. So I think that's the best way I can answer that for you.
Okay. Can you nominate a business owner to pay Jobkeeper who isn't an employee? That's normally the situation. This business owner wasn't eligible for Jobkeeper on the 31st of March, but is on the 1st of July.
It's a strange one because
yeah.
okay, technically yes, because you can, with that nomination of business owner eligible but business participant form, fill that in. I do find it, without knowing the details, because I know who this is, but I don't know intimately their business because they're not a client of ours. What I don't know is it's a bit strange how they're eligible on the 1st of July but not the 1st of March. That being aside, put away the strangeness of it because I don't know. If they're an eligible business participant, okay. So they're saying the spouse wasn't I'm assuming that means tax resident. Is that correct?
I was going to say something there.
Yes, okay, tax resident.
Right.
So what that means is if they're now eligible based on the criteria I went through right at the start, as an eligible business participant, what happens is you have to fill in one of the forms. Remember, you can only have one eligible business participant per business, okay? You can't have more than one. What you can have, and this happens a lot, we've got businesses where one of the people that, say the husband or the wife, say the husband might be an employee of the business, but the wife isn't, but they both work in the business. Potentially, subject to all the rules, which I'm not going to go all over again, about ticking the boxes on who's eligible and who's not, subject to eligibility, you can potentially have one who's an employee and one who's a business participant. If you both are not employees and you both work in the one business, you can only have one business participant. So it depends if that business you're talking about, they can't have had a business participant before because you can't, you can only have one. So if you've got a business participant, you can't have another one.
But
right?
if you didn't, you certainly can. And that's the thing I was going to say too. Even though you might not have been aware that you could actually do that sole or business participant, and you're now become aware of it, there's no reason why you can't
Correct.
apply it
As
now.
long as you tick all the eligibility, which was at the start, you've got to do a business participant nomination form.
Yep.
Let the ATO know, because if you don't have a current enrolled business participant, part of the enrollment process, guys, is you have to let the ATO know the details of that person. So it'll be their full name, tax file number, date of birth, all that sort of gear. The ATO have to know, which your accountant can do through the business portal or the BAS portal. They can let the ATO know who the eligible business participant is. First of all, though, you need to have the nomination form signed and on file. Secondly, then you need to then let the ATO know they're an eligible business participant and from what date. And they can't be before the 3rd of August, the eligible business participant, based on these rules. But they have to have been a participant at 1 July, but they're only available to get Jobkeeper from 3rd of August. So it'll be 4 fortnights that you'll get the eligible, but it's still $1,500 a fortnight for that person for the remaining 4 fortnights. And you don't have to pay them anything. It's not like an employee where you've got to pay them a minimum amount. A lot of the times, I'm assuming whoever this business participant is, that they're not an employee, because if they're an employee, they can't do this as well. They're going to be enrolling under an employee status. So if they were an employee at 1 July, they could actually get under an employee, and you don't need to go down this business participant path. But if they weren't an employee at 1 July, then yes, potentially the business participant status can be effective 1 July, but you only get Jobkeeper from the 3rd of August. But you don't need to pay a business participant anything. They just get the $1,500 in lieu of putting in the hours and not getting a salary kind of thing. So, any other questions, guys?
I think we're just
I'll just hang on. I'll just keep going. Sorry, it's been full on, but I've gone really quickly so you guys can get the most out of this and come back.
I hope now that you feel that you can actually complete those forms. Task maybe to do tonight or first thing tomorrow morning so you can get them off to any eligible employees. As I said before, limited time on this, and it is an opportunity, guys. You know, if we don't do this, and all the business owners, if they don't do this in the next 10 days, they're going to miss out on the 2 lots of payments.
Well, there's potentially on the table here $6,000 worth of reimbursements of expenses or income coming back from, because the 3rd of August, there's 6 fortnights left in the Jobkeeper. That's potentially, and I'm saying potentially, and this is where it comes into a a one-on-one situation, but there's potentially $6,000 available to help you guys with your businesses and reimburse your costs and help you prosper. And
that's per employee. But what $6,000 is per employee.
Yeah, correct.
But you've got 3,000. If you do not act now and do all of this by the 31st of August, you miss out on that 3K.
Yeah, correct.
3K.
So
that's why we're saying, get it out there, share. Come on, we have to. They're doing all of this, and they really aren't educating us or giving us any advice. They're doing this, and they're really putting on tight deadlines. So I implore you all to try and share this so we can get as many Jobkeeper, yeah. For
businesses, get as many businesses to get what they're entitled to within the rules and do all the paperwork and everything necessary to facilitate it and stack up in an audit. But the action has to be really swift. And business owners in this last 6 months should be used to taking swift action and doing things, because there's been a lot of curveballs and there's been a lot of action.
And
so
plus, poor old accountants and bookkeepers, we're the ones that have to action most of this in the next 10 days. I mean,
yeah, I know.
God love them.
But you will be all getting a YouTube MP4 version of this. So please feel free to share this to fellow business owners who can benefit or potentially benefit from this knowledge. And one last thing I wanted to say for all the people who are on this call who we currently don't work with, we do offer potential, so people who want to, maybe have a one-on-one chat with us about how our knowledge can benefit where they're at with their business now and moving forward. We do offer a no obligation, no cost, one-on-one session with me personally, one-on-one for a minimum of 2 hours, where you've got to provide us some information and data, but then we sit down, I analyze it. We have a 2-hour session where I ask you a lot of questions. And at the end of that, I share with you what I find, how I think you can improve your situation both now and in the future. And so if anyone's interested in that, please shoot an email to bdm@superioraccountinggroup.com.
Oh, it doesn't matter, or it's
customer care at superioraccountinggroup.com. And I'd only be too glad to have a one-on-one chat with you about how your business can potentially be improved and benefited moving forward.
So we're going to wrap this up, but there were some people that were interested in the alternative test. So we might go to our website and have a look at that.
Good question.
But we're going to, for those that aren't interested in it, we'll say good night to you. Thank you very much. We hope you got something out of it all.
Thank you for giving up your time of an evening. We very much appreciate it. For those guys that want to hang on, I'm just going to I'm going to stop the PowerPoint there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go onto the website and hang on a second. I'll find it in a second. Just bear with me, guys. So let me share this. Hang on. So go share. Where is it? Here.
Yeah.
So under resources and webinars, down here, there's the alternate test there, guys. So see the alternate test available to meet the Jobkeeper 30% drop in May. Feel free to go to that and watch that webinar, because that is purely about the alternate test. Now, my understanding is that those tests have not changed for these new situations moving forward, but they are a bit tricky and they will need a one-on-one consultation to really nut through the application of it, because it's not straightforward, but that'll give you some information where you might have known none. So please feel free.
See whether it's worth then having a consultation.
Yes, correct. So that's where that is, guys. And feel free to stroll through our website. There's things on home office, travel, travel diaries, logbooks. There's a tax planning session. There's all sorts of things on there, guys. Feel free to roam at your leisure. But on that note, I say to you all,
what's that?
Thank you very much for giving up your valuable time of an evening that you would normally spend with your families. And we're here for you in any way, shape or form to help you and your businesses come out the other side prosperous. And we look forward to helping you at any stage and in any way moving forward. So until then, take care.
Bye.